Wonderful good morning to one and all. I am Poorna Prakash, Assistant Professor of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science in Akshaya College of Engineering Technology, Coimbatore. My subject code is 83390 Database Design and Management. Now I am going to teach about Database Management System Architecture. Database Management Architecture is a representation of DBMS design. Database schema is a collection of database objects like table, views, indexes and so on associated with one particular database username. This username is called the schema owner. For example, student schema can be owner of student and marks as table. The course schema can be the owner of subject table. The goal of tree schema architecture is to separate the user application from the physical database. The architecture of database is divided into three levels based on three types of schema: internal schema, conceptual schema or external schema. Internal level, it contains internal schema. This schema represents physical storage structure of database. This schema is maintained by the software and the user is not allowed to modify it. This level is closest to the physical storage. It physically described record layout of the files and types of file access path, etc. Conceptual level, it contains conceptual schema. This schema hides the detail of internal level. This level is called a logical level as it contains construct used for designing database. It contains information like table name, their column, indexes and constraints database operation. A representational data model is used to describe conceptual schema when database system is implemented. External level, it contains external schema or user views. At this level, the user will get to see only the data stored in the database. Either they will see whole data values or any specific records. They will not have any information about how they are stored in the database. The process of transforming request and result between level are called mapping. In this three schema architecture, there are two mapping: external conceptual mapping and conceptual internal mapping. Now I am going to tell about types of architecture. They are divided into three main types of architecture. First one is one tier architecture, second one is two tier architecture, third one is three tier architecture. One tier architecture. In DBMS, simplest architecture of database is the in which client server and database is all reside on the same machine. One tier architecture is example would be any time you install a database in your system and access into practice SQL queries, but such architecture is rarely used in production. Two-tier architecture. Two-tier architecture is similar to a basic client-server model. This application at the client and directly communicate with the database at the server side. APIs like ODBC, JDBC are used for this interaction. The server side is responsible for providing query processing and transaction management functionalities, and the client side, the user interface and application programs are run. The application on the client side establish a connection with the server side in order to communicate with the DBMS. Advantages of two-tier architecture: maintenance and understanding are easier, compatible with existing system. Disadvantages: this model gives poor performance when there is a large number of users. Three-tier architecture. In this type, there is another layer between their client and the server. The client does not directly communicate with each other, instead interact with any application server, which further communication with database system and then query processing and transaction management takes place. This intermediate layer acts medium for the exchange of partially processed data between server and client. This type of architecture is used in case large. Advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of three-tier architecture: it enhanced scalability due to distributed deployment of application server. Now individual connection needs not be made between client and server. Data integrity is maintained since there is a middle layer between client and server. Data corruption can be avoided, removed. Security is improved. This type of model prevents direct interaction of the client with the server, thereby reducing access to unauthorized data. Disadvantages of three-tier architecture: increased complexity of implementation and communication. It become different for the sort of interaction to takes place due to the presence of the middle layer. Now I am going to tell about difference between two-tier and three-tier architecture. Two-tier architecture, it is a client-server architecture. Three-tier architecture is a web-based architecture. Two-tier architecture consists of two-layer client tier and database data server. Three-tier architecture consists of three-layer clients layer, business layer, and data layer. It is easy to build and maintain, but three-tier architecture is complex to build and maintain. Two-tier architecture runs slower. Three-tier architecture runs faster. It is less secured as client can communicate with the database directly. It is secured as client is not allowed to communicate with the database directly. It results in performance loss whenever the user increases rapidly. It results in performance loss whenever the system is run internet but gives more performance than two-tier architecture. Example of two-tier architecture is contact management system. Contact management system created by using MS Access or railway reservation, etc. Example of three-tier architecture: designing registration from which contain text box, label button, or a large website on the internet, etc. Thank you to Nanda.